You're listening to the Trailblazers Podcast, episode 78 with Squeaky Moore.
You're listening to the Trailblazers Podcast, where we will explore the stories of successful Black professionals. Join us as we highlight the knowledge, resources, and tools of these accomplished trailblazers to help provide the know-how, confidence, and motivation you need to blaze your trail. And now, here's your host, Stephen Hart.
Hello, Blazer Nation. Welcome to today's episode of the Trailblazers Podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Hart. Listen, I'm so grateful that you've tuned in and getting set to share in today's conversation. Our featured trailblazer on today's episode is Squeaky Moore. She's regarded as the pitch guru for independent content creators and likes to describe herself as one woman, many faces, one creator, many talents. She's been in the entertainment industry for over 20 years and is someone who understands the business from every angle, in addition to being that independent content creator. She's also a producer, a director, a writer, an actress, and a mompreneur who is able to freelance as a development and pitching consultant and strategist. She recently authored a book for content creators after her journey through pitching her film and television projects over 100 times. And the book, which is titled 100 Pitches, Mistakes I've Made So You Don't Have to, is a film and television pitching guide that's geared towards independent content creators and talks about her pitching journey and the do's and don'ts of pitching television and film projects. And she talks a bit about the book in our interview, in our conversation today. And we also discuss some of the common mistakes that people make when they're pitching. And she shares one of the pitch strategies that she'd coach if she had nothing else to share. Even though the book is geared to people in film and television, I thought it was applicable for all our entrepreneurs and even our professionals, those in the corporate world. I think you'll take away quite a bit from today's conversation. Without question, she shared insights in today's interview that I think will still leave you very inspired and provide you some practical nuggets of wisdom that you can put into application and action right now. So go ahead, grab a pad and a pen or your favorite note-taking app. Mine is Evernote. Get set to jot down some goodness that you can begin to put into action today. On a side note, if you're someone that listens to the podcast frequently, I'd love to have a conversation with you. If you could just shoot me an email or hit me up on Twitter at TBPod. I'd love to connect. It's pretty crazy that we've now been downloaded in 100 countries around the world, right? But as podcasters, we don't have tangible data that comes back to us on exactly who is downloading these episodes around the world. So I'd love if you've been consuming our content. This is now episode 78. If you're someone that listens to our podcast pretty frequently, I'd love you to reach out and connect with me. That said, if you are looking for the show notes for today's episode, you can hop on over to our website at tbpod.com. There you have all the show notes, Squeaky's full bio, and all the links to her on the web and on social media. And let's get set, guys, to go ahead and receive some mission fuel from today's trailblazer, Squeaky Moore. Enjoy. Squeaky, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for being our featured guest today.
Thank you so much for having me. I've been wanting to, get on your show for a while now, so I'm really excited about this.
Yes, I believe we initially connected through Lucinda Cross, another one of our featured trailblazer here, and I believe you helped coach her and prepare her for her pitch on the first season of Centric TV's Queen Boss.
Yes.
So we're going to talk a bit today about your role as a pitch coach in a minute. But before, we get into that, I wanted to maybe take you back for a bit and have you share a little bit about who is Squeaky Moore. And I'm interested in hearing how you got your name.
Oh, my God. I didn't expect that question. So my name, this is not a fantabulous story or anything. So when I was a baby, I used to climb out of my crib and my crib would squeak. And that's how my siblings knew I was awake. And so they would go, Squeaky's up or whatever. And so really that's how I got my name, and it just stuck. And I like it better than I like my real name, which I refuse to say what it is. But it's so much better than my real name. And, because I'm an actress.
Yes.
I was an actress first. It just made sense. It was just a dope stage name, and it just so happened to be my name, so.
That's how
so that's how I got Squeaky.
Love it.
But I am I started my career as an actress, and my career has transitioned over time. But I started as an actress. I started directing for stage and mounting plays for stage in Chicago, which is where I'm from. And then it transitioned to producing for, filmmaking as a producer. And then I knew that I just like being behind the scenes, and I like being part of the creative part. And so I really wanted to go back into that role as director and writer. So Squeaky is a director, writer, producer. I'm a mom. I'm a wife. And I just added a new title, which is author. I'm an author. Yay!
That's awesome.
So exciting. I know. I'm excited. Thank you.
So let's step into that, right? Share with us a little bit about what you're doing in that area and what's driving you today. What moved you to become
write the book?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's just say this. If you talk to my friends back home, they're going to say, girl, you've been an author since you were 2 years old. Like, I have written books, but this is the first one that I've actually published. But what drove me to write this book, my book is called 100 Pitches, Mistakes I've Made So You Don't Have to. And what drove me to write the book is that, so I was pitching content. It started back in 2013. I was pitching, went into the filmmaking, started doing filmmaking, and I wanted to pitch for TV. I wanted to create for TV. And so on our first pitch, it was just the craziest thing. The first pitch went far. They really liked the story. They liked the storytelling. And we got so far, and it didn't, for different reasons, which I can discuss later, but it didn't go all the way. Our show didn't get put on air. And that took me down. And so what would start happening is I'd start creating another show. I'll get out and pitch it. I'll go so far. But if it didn't make air, I would just shut down. I would put that piece of work aside for 4, 5, 6 months, 7 months in some cases, and I wouldn't get back to it. And so at the top of 2016, I knew when I was doing my goal setting for the year, I said, I didn't want to be mediocre in my attempts. I knew I was seeking success and I couldn't be mediocre. And I knew that putting my work down for that long wasn't going to get me where I needed to be in my career. Right. And so I set out to go on this journey to pitch 100 times, mainly to rise above rejection, which is what I was feeling like. And it was on that journey that I became so frustrated, because it was my first pitch into the journey that I would meet with an executive producer for an idea that I was going to pitch her. I wanted to attach her to the project. And she asked me if I had a format Bible, which I lied. And I was like, yeah, please. Yes, I got it. I'll send it to you. And she was like, okay, great. And I got out of that meeting. I'm like, what the heck what does she want? And so I ask everybody, Stephen, I even went so far because people didn't know, how to help me with some of the things that they were expecting me to give them for the show that I had created. And so when I got to asking a lot of content creators, and I even took it to producers and executive producers and and then I went to development people in the networks, and they still didn't quite know what they were asking for. And I was frustrated and it was on the heels of Oscar So White. And so I was like, this is why our shows are not being seen. This is why our stories are not being told, because we're not buttoned up. We're faking it until we make it. And that's fine. That's what we have to do. But we can't rest in that. You know what I'm saying? We can't rely on that. And I was so frustrated. And I kept thinking about all of the women content creators or the minority content creators. And I'm like, if I don't know, and half the people I know don't know, then you want
to change the narrative.
Oh my God, I was so frustrated. And I was like, I'm going to write something. I don't care if it's a manual or something. It can be 10 pages. I'm going to go on this journey and I'm going to document it and I'm going to write about it.
And you
So
did.
that's where the book came from.
And you did. Congrats on that.
Thank
you.
you.
You took action, which is
Took
wonderful.
action.
So share with us maybe 5 lessons that you discovered from this journey.
Oh my God. Well, the first one, which was one that was really valuable to me, and it deals with the rejection, which is the reason that I went on the journey in the first place. And it is simply, no is not universal. You know, just because one network or executive producer says no to me doesn't mean my story sucks. Doesn't mean that it's not good or, I'll never be anywhere in life, which is the way, I took rejection. And what I later learned is a lot of people look at rejection that way. When they're rejected, their mind plays all sorts of tricks on them. And so that would be one. I learned to break the rules, which is very key when you're trying to break in. You can't just abide by the rules. And over time, I've learned that so many people are hung up on, I don't have representation. I can't get a pitch. And they don't even try because they've been told they can't get through the door. And I'm thinking, well, I don't have representation and I'm always getting through the door, So you kind of got to break the rules. My faith, I learned a big lesson about what my faith was. And basically, I like to say that I was the biggest spiritual person and I had the faith of an atheist.
Wow.
It was so bad. I didn't believe in myself. I didn't believe him, or I just didn't believe that God could make it work for me, or I just lacked in faith in so many areas. And I realized I was like, I have a lot of work to do to get my faith right, because I'll never make it if I don't believe that I should be seated at the table.
Right.
And so that was a huge one. And then I wanted people, and this is another huge lesson that I learned, is this: I just had to value myself and I had to value what I brought to the table, my knowledge. And that's basically what I'll talk to when I'm inspiring other people. It's about, do you value the work that you're putting out? It's all type of crap out here on TV and in the movie theaters. Let's face it. And those people at some point said, it don't matter that women are beating each other up and degrading each other or degrading men and doing all of this stuff. I'm going to put it out there. At some point, they valued themselves or their work enough to get it out there. And so I had to learn to value myself so that when I go, I can stand confident in, this is what I've created and it is amazing.
Yes.
And so those would be some of my takeaways. Yeah.
Love that, Squeaky. So,
thank you.
I know your book highlights advice from several notable people in the industry.
Yeah.
What's one piece of advice that maybe stood out to you the most?
So I did an interview with J. Alexander Martin, who is one of the co-founders of FUBU.
Right.
And he said to me, he talked about how he started FUBU and the money he put up for it. And he said, Squeaky, you got to stop, waiting. So many people like you go into and they're like, invest in me, give me $1 million to do this project and do this and do that. And you're waiting around for someone to invest in you. And he's like, you just got to get out there, invest in yourself, do the work and let them come to you. If you're doing the work, they'll come. And, that hit home for me. It's like, yes, there's a fine line. I do need to get it on networks, and I do, I want to get my stuff out there on networks and in films. And it's a skill to pitching investors and all of that. And I do need them. If you have $1 million project, let's just face it. Major films are out there and they're getting other people to invest in them. But if I'm an unknown,
you have to start somewhere. Yeah.
I have to start somewhere. And the way to get known is to just do what I can with what I have.
Yes.
And that's basically what J. Alexander Martin was saying. Use what I have to do what I have to do and get them to notice me that way.
I'm a living example of that with this podcast.
Yeah.
I sat on this idea for this podcast for, a couple of years. And another close podcast friend of mine, Donald Kelly, who was my first guest, just rode just stayed on me. I was like, Steven, just put it out there. Just put it out there. Just take action, and every day I have people reaching out to me saying, how do I start a podcast? Right. And I've coached several people now through the process, but so many of them have this hang up that everything has to be perfect. Many of the listeners who are listening to your story right now know they've heard several episodes where the audio maybe wasn't right, maybe where, something didn't go quite right. And I put that out, and, the saying, you ask for forgiveness before, asking for permission, right? I mean, just put it out there, and explain kind of where you are and just be transparent, and it's funny how God just blesses what you're doing, as you go. And I've seen kind of how things have steadily grown in the work we're doing here. So, I just connect to that advice.
I have a huge testimony. I mean, I know so many stories and people that I've had to say to them, you just have to just do it. It's just time for you to do it. Just do it. Just do it. And, I hold people accountable. So I said, well, just give me a date. Let's just set some dates. Let's put some dates on the calendar. I'm going to hold you to them. But, speaking of just stepping out, my book tour would not have happened if I waited around for the money, if I waited around for anything, even for the book to get ready. Let's just be clear. Like, I'm a believer. Tony Robbins has, he says a thing called can I or Connie, depending on who, how you pronounce it. But it's constant and never ending improvement. And I almost live by that. And so when I felt myself operating in fear, it's like, everything doesn't have to be done at once. Just take one step, just make one step, and then take the next step. And before you know it, you'll get there. And so I was operating in such fear, like, oh my God, people are going to like the book. Oh my God, I don't have all of this money to do a tour, and I don't have sponsors. And, and I remember it took me month after month to actually set a date because I was just operating in so much fear. And my business mentor, he was like, let's get to the bottom of it. Why aren't you doing these things? And there was so many things wrapped around it, but I remember I just set the date. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it June 12th. That's my date. And I have this much time. And I didn't have a lot of time. I didn't have the money technically to be on a tour. And I was just like, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to take the first step. And I remember going back to God. I'm very spiritual, as you can see. I always mention God, but I remember going back. I apologized to him because I was operating in fear. And here I was faced with the whole faith thing again. And I heard him tell me, like, if just take a step, I'll do it. Don't worry about the rest. And I was like, but God, I ain't got nothing. What are you talking? Dude, you be tripping. Like, I ain't got nothing. What do you mean? And I just took the step, Stephen, and I just set the date, and I didn't even have anybody. I'm promising people, like, I'm going to have these people on the panels. I'm going to have all of this. And I'm like, I don't have any of that, but I put that date out there. And he was like, put it in the calendar, put it on Facebook. And I'm like, I am like telling these people that I have all of this and I don't. And to see him, and I had an epic, book release kickoff.
Nice.
And to see it all come together, and even, other states are coming together and sponsors are coming together. It's really because I just did it. I just took the step, and it wasn't perfect. It was epic, but it wasn't perfect, and there's still things that I need, but just taking the step was amazing. And it was like, it taught me, and I had to go sit and be quiet for a moment because I needed to reframe my thinking. I needed to have the imprint on my mind of what really took place. How did that happen from nothing? When people say, well, what was your budget? I say, it's a zero budget. And they're like, huh? What do you mean a zero budget? Well, that's how much money I have to spend on this whole tour. I didn't prepare. I did it in 6 weeks. It's a zero budget right now. So that's what happens when you just do it, when you just take the step and you just do it.
I can't help but think of, as we're talking about faith, Philippians 4:6, that says, don't be anxious. Some versions say, don't worry about anything, pray about everything, right? And,
let your requests be known to God.
Exactly. So that's awesome. That's really fantastic to kind of see how things have, your faith now, it was tested, but you're being rewarded for being faithful and taking action. And that's a wonderful thing. So let's kind of swing back to this pitching piece again, right? So, today you're pitching coach. And as I touched on earlier, I know you mentioned, are you only coaching content creators?
No, so it started that way, but believe it or not, I get more people that are like small bit. I don't get more, but I get an equal amount of like entrepreneurs or people with products and things. I'm helping a lot of those people who want to get on Shark Tank, or they're going to go on, to pitch their ideas to, their products to, QVC, things like that. I get a lot of those clients, coaching clients. And what I learned is, for the most part, the pitching is the same. Now, what goes into the pitch and what you need, the materials and the things you need to list may be different. But the key to pitching, no matter who you are, is the same. And that's really how you're storytelling, how you're engaging the person that's listening.
Let's maybe dive a little bit deep on that. What are some of the biggest mistakes people are making then when they're pitching, when they're making a pitch?
Well, storytelling. My biggest mistakes earlier on when I pitched, two big mistakes, but it all comes down to the storytelling.
So storytelling is a mistake?
Well, yes, it is a mistake. Most people, when they're going pitching, they're nerds or they don't know, because one of the biggest questions that I'm asked is like, where do I start? And most people don't even know where to start talking, what to start talking about. And so, especially if it's like content or stories that they're telling, they go into just listing a bunch of facts where this show is about this, or this product is about this, and, this is what it is, and this is what it is, and this is what it is, and this is what I got, and this is how I did it, and then I created it in the lab, and I did it, and it's about a bunch of facts that they're listing. But what they forget to tell, and this is the next big mistake, is that, one, why this is important to them, their why, their value add. For instance, I created a film about mental health. And so if I were going into a pitch about that, I first initially talk about how this all kicked off in the first place, why I did this in the first place, and why it's important for me to do this film. And it's primarily because I struggled with depression and anxiety at a time in my life. And there was a lot of added value, a lot of, there was much that I could add to this film. So most people, they forget to tell the story or
so they don't
premise.
know how to tell the story properly.
They don't know where to start in it.
Got it.
Or to tell it. Like I said, they list facts. They forget the story part. I was coaching a client and she just didn't think that it was important to talk about what made her create the product in the first place. Like, I created this product and it's this and it does this and it's the only this and it's the best of that. And it is. All of those things are real. But most of the times people are not buying into your product. They're buying into you. They're buying into the story behind your product.
Right.
Or the story behind the thing. And so you want to tell that story because that's how you're going to engage them in the first place.
That's what creates the connection.
Absolutely. I would say those are some of the biggest mistakes. Listing and then, we're not buttoned up. We don't have the materials. Like in my case, I didn't know what to bring to I didn't what to bring to a pitch. I knew my story. I was great at storytelling. That's where I shone. That's where I was shining in that area. But I didn't have what I needed to carry the pitch out, to hand over. So I'm faking it until I make it. I don't even know that these things that I'm supposed to have all of these different things. And as I'm coaching clients that are like pitching their products, they have created a great product, but they may not have the patent together, or they may not have thought through how much is all of this going to cost if I were to do it on a bigger level, a bigger scale. Or so we're just going with the passion, and now it's time to button up. You know what I'm saying? On the business side of things is another big mistake that I see all the time with people.
So you're on a book tour now, right? You talked about this just a second ago. What's the mission for the tour?
So overall, my book is for any content creator, filmmaker, writer, director, producer, whoever. But I have a passion for women and minorities. And so we, in entertainment, directors, we're no further today as far as the numbers go, or data shows that we're no further today than we were 3, 4, 10 years ago. We're not getting the jobs. We're just not getting the jobs. They're not offering us the work. And if it is, it's like 3, 4 women, and then even fewer Black women that are getting the jobs, that are getting their shows on air, that are, being able to get their work out there. And so my mission is for women and minorities, to help them to button up, to help them know how to pitch so that more diverse stories can be seen and heard, or to help women with the business aspects so that they can get their products, so that their businesses can go further. Their products can be seen, and, giving resources out to them. So that's my mission, really, in a nutshell.
That's awesome. I love that. I talk quite a bit with female entrepreneurs, with corporate leaders, and it's interesting to hear of the challenges that, female entrepreneurs, female corporate leaders, especially Black women, are dealing with. And it's interesting to kind of hear you speak about similar issues in your space, in your industry as well.
As I've been over the last year or two, I've been pushed by my business mentor to really step out on some really large ideas that, in a practical world, I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to see this through. But again, it's the can I? It's just like take one step at a time. And I've even had to do a lot of development for myself to be able to get my mind right around the ideas, the mission, which is, my biggest thing was, well, how can I do this on a bigger scale? I can teach one person at a time. I can coach one client, but it's bigger than that. It's like, how can more stories be seen and heard? And I've taken that mission on. And so, which is for me to, get my start. I already have a production company, but to really focus it on minority and female driven content. And to, have people get behind me and pour the money into it so that I can make it happen on a bigger scale. You might have a network that they'll vet 5 people and then it's one winner, one Black producer or a woman of color or something. And that's the winner and they get to shadow, somebody at ABC or something like that. And it's like, well, that's not going to work if you're just doing one a year. Like, that's not enough. You know what I'm saying? And so, my bigger mission is like, how can we get 10 projects out a year? And how can we take that one, all of those people that that didn't make it, but you chose 5 and pair them with the works and the content that I've managed to get from my production company. So more stories are being put out and told. And so that's the bigger mission.
And also, too, I feel like the exposure and the awareness for even those who aren't able to make it, but be in the same space with those that did, they can pull from that wisdom and that knowledge and that experience. And and that usually fuels, networking opportunities where, having those relationships can only help,
Absolutely.
What do you think and maybe let's talk about so where are you headed with the book tour? What cities are you reaching out to some?
Okay, so I've had a change of direction. So these are the first cities that I'm reaching out to. So I head to Atlanta in August the 1st, I believe. I'm heading to Atlanta. And then after that, I'm going to Chicago and then LA, Houston, DC, and Charlotte. But recently I've had a change of heart and I don't want to hit big cities anymore. I want to hit the places where, I'm getting people that are saying like, I'm in Reno, Nevada. Like, so it's like, well, how can I get these executives to North Dakota or some small rural town in Ohio or, and so now that's kind of the direction I want to go in. And I've been talking to some of the executives like, provided I get the sponsorship to be able to fly you in, will you be open if the time works for you? And so now that's kind of what I'm doing.
What scares you about that?
Nothing really scares me about that. Again, it's about having the balls and having to say, I need all of this money to be able to do it and to kind of know it's really just putting in the work and putting it in kind of fast because obviously time is of the essence, but I really do want to be able to cater to those smaller outlets. I really want to get my teaching because, my book tour, again, like I said, I'm workshopping directly from the pages of the book. And then I hold a panel discussion with the executives.
Wow.
And the content creators.
This is not like a typical book tour.
No, not at all. Like I'm doing all of this stuff. And so my workshop it's a mini workshop, and where I just talk about, I've chosen one main topic from each chapter. Even though there's a lot in each chapter, I'm talking about one that I feel like if you never bought the book and you needed to get, and you were going to pitch tomorrow, what would you need to take away tonight?
Love it.
And how can you apply it tonight? And so I speak for about an hour, and then I do like a 30-minute panel discussion and Q&A. Well, about 45-minute panel discussion and Q&A. And then it's networking for the content creators to be able to rub elbows with the executives, which adds to my mission, which is to bring everybody in the room together. Because in a typical world, that would never happen. You need agents and managers and all of this. But I'm like, nope, let's break some rules. Let's get everybody together. And I want you to be able to start building your own relationships.
So I love that. I love this idea. This is a really neat concept, neat thought. What do you think is going to be beyond that, right? Beyond a book tour? What do you feel like is maybe going to be the best platform to help you promote the book?
Oh, that's a good question. Especially since I just was fine tuning my marketing plan. Well, the first thing I'm doing, I really haven't launched the book, even though it's published. Like I just published May 30th, but I haven't went on a full launch. So the first thing is I'm vetting a launch team.
Got it.
Where I'm going to I'm looking for like 50 people that I can give this book to and offer a whole bunch of other things to, so that I can get reviews and I want honest 5-star reviews. And that's how I'm wording it. Please feel free to be honest and just give me the 5 stars.
Quick 5 stars.
Honest. Oh, you didn't read the book? Okay, can you do a review? Yeah, no, but I am also right now, today was actually my first day. I started getting the book. My goal is to get it in about 300 local bookstores, believe it or not.
Wow.
I know. I started today in Atlanta. And I'm just going to go state by state asking to get it in local bookstores. So that's a part of the plan. Things like, going from podcast, and I'm trying to get on it. That's why I'm here. I'm, trying to get on as many podcasts as I can, and radio stations, major radio stations. And now I'm going to also start to try to do some major media outlets. So I'm working now that I'm done with the book, I'm working the marketing plan, and there is a marketing plan and so many different line items there that I have to do. It's almost kind of overwhelming, all of the stuff that I have to do. But I think the biggest things are like the podcast, the radio stations, the major media outlets, the launch team. I'm giving away 2 free chapters of my book to all of your guests. That was part of the plan, to give away 2 free chapters of the book. And yeah, those are some of the big. I'm on this domination. Like right now, I'm like, okay, I got to dominate. I've been listening to Grant Cardone too much. And so I'm on this. He's been sending me off. So I'm on this domination.
Emails a lot.
Oh my God. Listen. So I'm on this domination, in my domination moment, where I knew in order to be seen and heard, I couldn't continue to do what I was doing on the level that I was doing it. And so my theme this year, I set goals at the top of each year, and I always give it a theme. My theme, even before I even got Grant's book, was I wanted to 10x everything. And so I asked myself a few days ago, I'm like, can you really Squeaky, you said you needed to 10x your numbers. Well, I was at 2,000 LinkedIn friends, almost 2,000 LinkedIn friends last year. Well, that means 20,000 LinkedIn friends. What are you going to do? You can't just be putting out one post a day if you think, and you think you're going to get 20,000, another 18,000 people. So I'm on this whole domination. Like I have to dominate. I have to step out. I have to be so big, and I have to give so much advice, and I have to I just have to dominate social media. I have to dominate, as a speaker, I'm starting to moderate panels and do speaking gigs and do more workshops. There's no way I can sit by and just do the minimum anymore in order to get this book seen and heard, because I do want it to be a bestseller. And that's kind of like, I'm going to be bleeding to make that happen if I need to. So
how do you balance that with life as a mom?
I hide in the car and I do a podcast.
I love it.
I'm outside hiding in the car so you don't,
hear the kids.
I do. I have an amazing husband and I do have a grand nanny in there helping me. So we do have someone that comes over Monday night through Friday morning to help out, and she stays with us. And then my husband is amazing. And I'm like, babe, you can't go work out. You can't do anything. I have a podcast. I can't even be in the house because that's no guarantee. Like, I can't be anywhere in the house, even with the doors locked. I just can't even. It's not going to work.
It.
So
that's right.
I got to either go in the garage or I got to come to the car. But it's tough, Honestly, I think Shonda Rhimes said it best, and that is, if I'm doing something right, it's a whole bunch of stuff that I'm doing wrong. And so today I dominated on the work side, but my daughter probably was walking around in a diaper. She didn't go for a walk or play in the park today. And yeah, that's pretty much what life is like. It's like I'm going hard on one thing and something else is probably not getting, the most attention. So
right. That's life. That's real as an entrepreneur. For sure. So, we're getting set to kind of come closer to the end of our call, unfortunately, but you've got 100 pitches. What's the one pitch strategy you would coach if you had nothing else to share?
That I would give? I would say, if you want it, the biggest question that I get, the most common question that I get is, where should I start in my pitch? And I would say start with the premise. In fact, I just put this out there today. I told the biggest secret to pitching, I think. And that is, start with the premise, which is the thing that initiated the whole thing. If it's a story, what was you think of E.T., it's like, well, how did that story begin? Well, this alien landed on planet Earth and then everything unfolded from there. Or if you've created a product and it's some eyelashes, and you created the finest set of mink eyelashes. Well, how did that begin? Well, I have alopecia and all of my eyelashes fell out, and I was so crushed and I was so damaged, and it made me, I wanted to feel beautiful, and I just started putting little things together. I don't know. I'm just coming up with something off the top of my head. But the point is start with the premise. And then once you start there, even if you're making it up like I just did, the story, especially if it's true.
I'm already bought in. Yeah.
Yeah, you're already, but not only that, you're already passionate about it, because typically the thing that kept us up at night, the thing that kept us creating the story or building out the product or getting a patent or anything was the very thing. It was the premise. It was the reason you started it, the reason everything was kicked into motion in the first place. And that's where you have that passion. That's why you're going to engage anybody listening to you. So I think the key is, the best strategy for me, I believe, is to start. And let me just be very clear. Pitching is subjective. They're all different. When I'm coaching, sometimes things come to me in the moment. It's like this anointing hits and I'm like, use that. For instance, with Lucinda, we had been working for a few days on her pitch for Queen Boss. And I
have no idea how Lucinda did not win. I'm still hot about that, because she had it, she definitely
she was so amazing. It was that number. She kept mentioning that number, 393. And I was like, and I woke up one day and I said, I got it. And we would meet like at ungodly hours, like at 4 a.m., 5 a.m. because, she was shooting. And so I said, let's use the number. And I said, that number was a negative.
So
it was negative. It's what held you back. But now let's turn it and use it into a positive and let's just put commas through that number. on your board, on your visibility board, or what's
Vision
it called?
board.
Vision board.
Right.
And just turn it into dollar signs. And she was like, oh, yes. So it's that secret sauce that comes in the moment. And that's what makes each thing has a thing, the it factor to the pitch.
Yes.
But that premise is undeniable when you start it. If you start there, it's undeniable. You're going to be passionate about the story you tell.
Yes. 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 Love it. So I know you had a free gift for Blazer Nation. Tell us about the freebie.
Yes. So actually I have two that I'm going to give your audience. If I'm giving away 2 free chapters of my book,
Love it.
100 pitches, mistakes I've made so you don't have to. And you can go to my website, subscribe. There's a form there that says, yeah, I want my 2 free chapters. And you'll get the book delivered to your email.
What's the web address?
Thepitch101.com. The Pitch, Pitch 101.com.
Nice.
The other freebie I'm going to give, but you have to say, I listened to the Trailblazers podcast. You have to go on my website, thepitch101.com, and just contact me and say, hey, I was on there listening, and you said that you would give this freebie out. But because I want to help everyone, I'm giving away a free teleseminar. It's about 60 to 70 minutes or so, and it's how do I know I'm ready to pitch?
Love it. Love it. Love it.
Yay.
Love it. Love it. Love it. So we're about to wrap up here. Last question. I want you to share one action our Blazer Nation should commit to taking this week to help them blaze their trail.
So I like to say in this game of pitching, the idea is always that we have to become visible, right? To get in front of the people that we want. And so this week for me has been about visibility. And so I say today, take an action to dominate getting in front of the people you want, whether it's putting out content that makes sense to the person that you want, if it's a network, if it's Damon John on Shark Tank or whoever it is that you want to pitch. Put out content and at them, or be bold enough to at them or to include them on it or to tag them in it. And so that now so you can get noticed, so that when you do come and say, hey, I got this pitch, they're already you've already been planting the seed, Yes. And so get visible. It would be the action that I would suggest everybody takes. Just be bold and just be like, forget it, I'm going to do it. Hit it, click it,
take
tag
action.
them, whatever.
That's right.
Yeah, take action.
That's right. That's right. Squeaky, really appreciate all this wisdom. Loved your nuggets, your mission fuel. I'm fired up. I'm ready to pitch at 10 p.m. on a Thursday night. Trailblazers grind continues, people. But thank you so much. I really, really appreciate having you on.
Thanks for having me.
Well, that's it for today. Thanks again for listening to this episode of the Trailblazers podcast. I'll be posting links to all of today's book recommendations and links mentioned on our show notes page at tbpod.com. If today was your first time listening to the Trailblazers podcast, I just want to extend a warm Trailblazers welcome to you. We're so happy to have you here, and we encourage you to go ahead and hit that subscribe button in your favorite podcast app. Go ahead and browse through some of our past episodes to keep the knowledge flowing. If you're a fan of the podcast and today's content, and you're maybe already subscribed to the podcast, please continue to share and invite your friends, your family, your colleagues to listen to an episode that you think might impact them most. We believe that someone listening to these inspiring stories will be moved to make significant changes that will have generational impact for many others, both now and well into the future. Don't miss next week's episode. New episodes are released each and every Monday by about 5 a.m. Eastern. Trailblazers, jump off this podcast today. Go find a way to rise above, go way beyond, and keep blazing your trail. Cheers.